for joining us at this time. Welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting for Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. For those of you joining us today, I'd like to introduce to you my committee staff, Trustee Aide Pohai Ryan, and Secretary Summer Source. Also to my left is our board counselor, Naive Waterman. At this time, we've established quorum. And Pohai, could you please do a roll call for us?
Trustee Ahuna is excused. Trustee Akaka.
Here.
Trustee Akina.
Aloha mai kako.
Trustee Galuteria.
Aye.
Trustee Kahele.
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Souza. Vice Chair Waihe'e.
Present.
And Chair Lapa.
Present.
8 present. Quorum is established.
Mahalo, Pohai. Now I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. It's at 11:22 a.m. And just a friendly reminder to our trustees to turn on your microphone so we could hear you. If not, you may have to take yourself off mute. If you're on Zoom, you can speak so that it records properly on your video recording of this meeting, or it may be inaudible for record-keeping purposes. As for public testimonies, the following rules apply. So that we are all respectful of everyone wanting to participate today, please be mindful of a public testimony should be limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda and will occur prior to any listed items on the conclusion or vote. If you begin to address other issues not on today's agenda, the BF chair will call you out of order and direct you to limit your testimony to items listed only on today's agenda. Testifiers' mics will be unmuted when it is your turn to testify, and at the same time, if you're not audible, you will be muted and the next testifier will be called. Oral testimony online we limit to 5 minutes and about 4 minutes and 30 seconds. If you're still testifying, we will give you a little heads up to wrap up your testimony. Your mic will be automatically muted once you have completed your oral testimony and or if your allotted time of testimony expires. Please log off after testifying. Otherwise, our staff will mute you and so forth. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask if there are any testifiers today, Pohai?
Yes,
Okay.
there are testifiers for the action items.
Okay, mahalo, and we will definitely get to our testifiers. But at this time, I'd like to call upon our COO, Kapo Nui Kihau Pu'u, to announce their administrative staff and anyone else joining us today.
Mahalo e ka luna ho'omalu. So with us today, both online and in person, we have our CFO, Ramona Hink, our Endowment Director, Ryan Lee, Interim Corporation Counsel, Everett Ota, Interim Senior Legal Counsel, Nichi Ozawa, Director of Human Resources, Corey Nakamoto, Senior Director of Strategy and Implementation, Elena Farden, Senior Director of Hawaiian Cultural Affairs, Hailama Farden, Director of Economics and Business Resilience, Pony Askew, IT System Engineer and Administrators, Daniel Santos and Arlene Aguinaldo. Mahalo.
Mahalo Kihau. And now on to item 2. If you're following along, folks, there are no minutes to approve at this time. We're going to move on to item 3 for unfinished. And once again, there is nothing on item 3, no old business. So let's move forward to item 4, which is our new business. And I'll read that for you. Our first item for item 4 is action item BF 2533, approval of OHA funding for a Ho'akoakoa Lahui event sponsorship to Ahakukui o Molokai for the 2025 Molokai Kamehameha celebration event on June 13th through the 15th, 2025 in the amount of $6,000. Do you have a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Mahalo, Trustee Waihe'e, and mahalo, Trustee Lindsay, for seconding that. And at this time, I'd like to call upon once again Kapunui Pu'u to lead the presentation on this item.
Mahalo, Trustee Chair Lapa. So administration is happy to recommend sponsorship of this event on Molokai next month, celebrating our Ali'i Kamehameha in the amount of $6,000. And I believe we do have representatives online to testify regarding this item.
Okay, may we have our first testifier, please?
We have Lori Lay Rollins Crivello online.
Aloha, Lori. She there?
Aloha mai kako. Can you hear me?
Aloha.
Aloha, Chairperson Alapa, Vice Chair Waihe'e, Trustees Akaka, Akina, Galataria, Kahelia, Lindsay, and Souza. My name is Lori Leigh Rollins Crivello, from the island of Molokai. I'm here in representation of Ahakukuyo Molokai and regarding action item BF number 25-33. And this is for requesting funding for the Ho'akokoa Lahui event sponsorship for our 2025 Molokai Kamehameha celebration event happening on June 13th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Starting with our King's Gala at Hotel Molokai, as well as on June 14th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Molokai Community Health Center with our Ho'olaulea. And I'm just thankful for this opportunity to come before you and first mahalo for all the works that you folks have done and all the support, especially for funding that's been coming into Molokai for grants and for events that we've been having. With this opportunity of our Kamehameha Gala King Celebration, we continue to foster community involvement in celebration of our ali'i, as well as perpetuating, preserving, promoting culture. And by doing so, allowing our community to take ownership and coming together as a community, you know, to celebrate, to commemorate, and to have a beautiful evening in all things Namea Hawaii, with our celebration of entertainment, Olelo Hawaii. We have a fashion show. We have artisans that come together, and just making that available to our community while also stimulating our Molokai economy. And so I'd like to mahalo you for your consideration of this grant opportunity. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Lori Leigh. Are there any more testifiers?
None at this time.
Any discussion, trustees, or questions?
Chair, I have a question.
Just go ahead, please.
Hi, Kehao. And again, thank you guys so much for providing the supporting documents for the application. I guess the questions I have are, so when reviewing the application, the applicant requested $10,000 and
Yes.
their budget breakdown, which is highlighted on the application, 40%, as noted on the score sheet, or $4,000 was going to be allocated towards entertainment and performances.
Yes.
And so when looking at the score sheet, and it looks like, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we landed on a 46 score for this. Is that correct? It's I have a hard time seeing, is that a 6 to the right or an 8?
So that's a 6.
Okay, so a 6, anything above 45 would be up to a max 100% of the ask. And is it the reason why we got to $6,000 is because we just subtracted out the 4,000?
Yes. So part of the review includes part of our process includes reviewing the budget request, and then we remove what is not allowed by HRS 1017, our granting authority. And it's kind of simple. It's two things. It's entertainment and perks. So if those are included in their budget breakdown, we'll take it out of the eligible. So we have requested budget, and I think we've added that this round for you folks to see. So what the organization requested, what after review of their budget ask was removed, and then what's recommended based on the scoring.
So then was there an opportunity to go back to the applicant to inform them of the items that were not eligible and see if they wanted to put a little more thought into their event or their application, and they could send back a revised budget, so we could possibly provide them closer to the amount that they were seeking?
No. And part of that is, we've made it explicit on the website as well as in the application, as they're going through the application. And then, I'll be very honest, it's a bandwidth issue to have to do a lot of back and forth. We do follow up if they're missing things, because that's considered an incomplete application, but in all transparency, we don't normally go back to say your budget is, we've decreased that, you have ineligible items in your budget.
Okay. All right, thanks, Chair.
Mahalo. Any other discussion, trustees? Go ahead, trustee Kaka.
Yeah, with this specific item, as well as the ones to come, I want to say I'm so happy to see that this is in the spirit of celebrating our King Kamehameha and so forth, and the history of our islands. And just one note, I'm looking forward to seeing something maybe coming regarding the celebrations DC side as well. DC, if there's anything coming in from that. Thank you.
Oh, okay, mahalo. Any other trustees? Anything else? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Akaka,
Aye.
Trustee Akina,
Aye.
Trustee Galuteria, Trustee Kahele,
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay, Trustee Souza, Vice Chair Wahe,
Yes.
Chair Lapa,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, mahalo, everyone. Moving on to our next item, action item BF 25-34. It's approval of OHA funding for a Ho'akoa'ko'olahu event sponsorship to Kauike Ki'okapo for the 2025 Malama Sweet Waters of the Dark Bay, Caring for Waimanalo Honouliuli event on June 14, 2025 in the amount of $500. Do you have a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Mahalo, Wahe, and thank you. Chair Marita? Lindsay? Okay. At this time, I'd like to call upon Kapo Nui Pu'u to take this agenda item for us.
Mahalo. So this is an event, and it's actually out on the west side, Waimanalo Honouliuli. That's Waimanalo Gulch, where our landfill is currently located. A couple things. It's a koa restoration project. The event has changed, so the organizers have informed us that they've moved the event back a week to June 21st. So first, I want to inform the board and be very open and transparent about that. We do want to keep it on the agenda if possible for approval. So that's one thing. The second thing is I'm going to call out that this item, the score for this project, was below what we would normally recommend at full. So the full ask was for $500. The score is below that. I mean, they didn't make the full 100% ask, but because it's such a small ask and I don't think we've had any Aina or Malama Aina kind of events that we have sponsored this year. We did go ahead and make a recommendation for full. If the board chooses otherwise, 75% would be $350 for this event. So
Mahalo for that. I understand we do have a testifier for this item. Pohai?
Yes, we have someone online, Kahuila O'Brien.
Okay, Kau.
Aloha, can
Hi,
you
are
hear me
you-
okay?
Oh, I see you. Aloha.
Aloha.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, aloha mai kako o Val Kahula O'Brien, president of Kauiki Okapo. Our organization was born out of our hula halau, Kiawe Kupono o Kaua, dancing out of Honokai Hale, the Kapolei area. We started our nonprofit just before the pandemic to help malama our cultural sites in the Ewa and Waianaimoku. We've been caring for the site of our upcoming event at Kueokahe, Waimanalo, a fishing shrine or ko'a for the past 20 years. What we noticed was that during COVID, with the closure of Ko'olina, people would be wanting to access the lagoon still, but so they would park near the shrine and walk along the grass path over there and leave their opala on the way to the ocean. But we wanted to bring more awareness to this area by engaging our community to care for the shrine. So we have received blessings to care for the ko'a from our kupuna in the area. And we have received support from marine biologists at Department of Land and Natural Resources, along with our sister organization, Ho'olaha Ni'o, to help revive the fishery out there between Ko'olina and Kahe. Our event, entitled Malama the Sweet Waters of the Dark Bay, Caring for Waimanalo, Honouliuli, will help connect people in our community from Nanakuli and Honokaihale, and also Waianae and Kapolei, and elsewhere on Oahu and beyond to help fill that pilina to our cultural sites in the area. The event runs from 8 o'clock to noon on June 21st, and thank you for consideration of pushing that date back for us. We will lead the event with a pule and introductions and a background of the area, its history, including oli and mo'olelo that are special to the place. We will then walk to the ko'a and have a lesson on the significance of uwala. To our side, our dry side of the island, we'll do some plantings and weedings around the shrine, and then walk back to Kahe to bless the food and have a limu lesson, teaching about the different types of limu that are found in the fishery around the area. The funding will help cover costs for plants, including the uwala, some native plants, ihi, and then ko. Also helps supply tools and food and drinks to share with our participants and volunteers. And then we will advertise this event on our website and then through our connections in the community. Mahalo for the consideration, and thank you for the opportunity to work with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui, thank you. Let's have, I think we have Trustee Souza. You have your hand up?
Yeah, aloha. Actually, my question is for the applicant, if you guys don't mind. Brother, did you only apply for $500?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, because I was gonna say the amount of time it takes you to fill out the application and go through the process is worth more than $500, brother.
Right.
But no, yeah, I mean, I would give you my support. So mahalo. Thank you.
Trustee Kahele.
Hey, thanks, Chair. You know, this is a interesting application because it's not a traditional sponsorship event in what we normally see. You know, this is more I guess more Ohana centric than more Hui organizational centric. In scoring these, and since you already alluded to the fact that it wasn't a max score, how do you guys I guess address, you know, applications like this that are more smaller scale, not necessarily large OHA promotional recognition opportunities in terms of assigning those specific values to the application based on the Mauni Maliola metrics that you guys use?
Quite honestly, this is our first of this kind, and so it isn't a typical event that we've seen in the past. However, when we redesigned Ho'akuakoa, we intentionally included these types of events as those that we would want to support, that the Office of Hawaiian Affairs would want to support. We continue to assign based on a strategic outcome, and so I believe that's what happened here. We have expanded the evaluator pool, but quite honestly, I'm waiting for this fiscal year to end because we have all of our applications for Q1, and so it's we want to bring it before the board though in May so that we can process in June, before the start of the fiscal year, so that we put ourselves on a better timeline. But it's also going to give us a little bit more time to address these, kinds of situations. We want to, I think I talked last time about calibration, with at least having multiple evaluators so that there can be a calibrated conversation. But yeah, so this one, that the scale wasn't maybe necessarily considered. However, when we saw the amount, the type of event, just
Yeah, definitely a worthy proposal. Perhaps moving forward, the scoring matrix can be a more of a living document, that gets adjusted for submissions like these, that are more smaller in scale, more Ohana centric rather than large Hui organizational events. Mahalo, Chair.
Okay, mahalo, thank you so much. Any other questions from our trustees? Okay, I have a question. Kapunui, what is the change date for this event?
So they're pushing back 1 week, so the event is scheduled to be held on June 21st, 2025. So if you folks are gonna support and approve this, then that would be the motion. You would need to amend the date.
Okay, so yes, and on that note, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend this particular action item for the change in date. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
Okay, moved by trustee Souza and second by Kaka. Mahalo. Can we have a roll call, please? Oh, okay, I'll reread the motion. Approval of OHA funding for the Ho'akoakoa action item, sorry, I'm going to back up there. Action item BF 25-34 is approval of OHA funding for a Ho'akoakoa Lahu event sponsorship to Kauikio Kapo for the 2025 Malama, the Sweet Waters of the Dark Bay, otherwise Caring for Waimanalo, Honouliuli. And the event will be taking place on June 21st, 2025 in the amount of $500. Okay, moved by trustee Souza and seconded by trustee Lindsay. Mahalo. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Akaka,
Aye.
Trustee Akina,
Aye.
Trustee Galuteria,
Aye.
Trustee Kahele.
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay, Trustee Souza, and Vice Chair Waihe'e, and Chair Lapa.
Yes.
Motion passes as amended.
Mahalo Poi. We now move on to item C, action BF 25-35, approval of OHA funding for a Ho'akoakoa Lahu event sponsorship to Leeward Kai Canoe Club for the 2025 Leeward Kai Father's Day Regatta event on June 14th through the 15th, 2025, in the amount of $15,000. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Souza, seconded by trustee Waihe'e. And at this time, Kapunui, I'd like to have you take over at this time to explain more about this particular sponsorship.
Mahalo, and we have representatives from Leeward Kai here today to talk more about the event, but it is, I'm as a Nanakuli resident, I can say this is a huge event in our community, annual. We are recommending, based on the evaluator score, the full amount that was requested of $15,000, and this canoe club did a very nice job of providing their budget breakdown. I do want to call out a few things to you folks. So the score sheet that is included in the packet is missing some numbers. And this is what happened last week also. So we had a lot of, so basically when we convert from Excel to PDF, for some reason, it doesn't carry all of the numbers over. However, I did pull up the original score sheet. They did score a 45. All the boxes are filled in, and I can provide those scores if
Yes,
you
I'd like
folks
to
would
see
like
that.
to.
Mhm.
Like me too, okay. Okay. I'm gonna look for the missing boxes real quick. Okay. Let me see. In event scope 2, they were given a 5. And then the score right under that was another 5. And then we have the 4, 4, another 5. So that last box on the bottom under alignment to Mana'i Mauliola was a 5. And then on the next or the back page, for budget, they were given an 8. So for a total score of 45, that was the score. I apologize. We're working out the kinks of converting from Excel to Adobe PDF, but we do retain all of the original scoring sheets, and we duplicate for action item because we've been adding in the scoring tiers as well as the amount that was requested originally along with the eligible amount. So putting it out there, Kalamai. But that's
Okay,
the-
so that, obviously, we don't want to go through this again. And so will we have the new program, whatever, updated so that, we are not having to, maybe perhaps we don't want to defer this or anything. So will that be corrected?
Yes, I mean, now that, we've noticed and we noticed that issue with a couple of the other action items. We just missed this one. We're going to be working with others to increase the team to help support this work. But ultimately, the score that's shown there, the total score was 45.
Okay.
So that's a recommendation at 100% of the eligible ask.
Great, mahalo. I'd like to bring up our testifiers. They're here, right? So can we please have Ohai, who is our testifier
Yes,
for
we have
this
one
item?
online and we have two people here in person. The person online first is Alfred Van Giesen.
All right, aloha, Alfred. Oh, there he is. Okay, go ahead. You may begin your testimony.
Hey, aloha, good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
I just want to say mahalo for adding us to the agenda and giving us the opportunity to present our sponsorship package. And thank you for the recommendation for the maximum award. Sorry, I'm kind of still getting up this morning. I'm currently in the Philippines, but I just wanted to kind of say aloha and send my mahalos and thank you for the support for our event. And I'll hand it over to the testifiers who are there in person today.
So we have Lavena Painter and Kepa Resents.
Okay, mahalo, thank you so much. Let's have our testifiers that are here in person, please come to the table.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Kepa Resents, and I serve as the co-treasurer for the Leeward Kai Canoe Club, a nonprofit organization rooted in the values of Malama Aina, Kuleana, and Aloha. We humbly submit this testimony in strong support of our application for grant funding for our office or from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. At Leeward Kai, canoe paddling is more than just a sport. It's a cultural practice that connects us to our ancestors, our Aina, and each other. We are committed to perpetuating Native Hawaiian values through paddling to create a safe, inclusive space for our community to grow both on and off the water. Many of our members are Native Hawaiians, youth and families who benefit not only from the athletic training, but also from learning and the mo'olelo stories, the protocols, and the traditional ties and honored, or which is honored to this practice. Your investment to our club would directly support the growth and empowerment of our lahui through deeply rooted in our community-driven tradition. We are grateful for the opportunity to continue serving our people with the support of OHA. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Is you going to testify as well? He's got it. Any other discussion, questions, trustees? Okay, go ahead, Trustee Akaka.
I want to mahalo you folks for coming and joining us in person, and also to, I think, is it Al online? If I see this correct, it's 5:49 a.m. in the 5:51 a.m. in the Philippines right now. So mahalo for joining us virtually as well, and
No
mahalo
worries,
for all
mahalo.
the community. Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions? Trustee Lindsay? Okay.
First of all, I want to thank you folks for all you do for our traditions and our keiki and those that are interested in our paddling. I have a question though. Are there any other sponsors? Because I don't see it on your application.
Yes, we do. We have several local sponsors that have donated to our club at the end of 2024 that will be present at our Father's Day Regatta. Currently, right now, Hui Huliao is very active in our club and donating and supporting our mission to our community. Who else?
What about the iron workers?
Oh, yes.
Because they're very generous.
They are, yes.
And-
Our iron worker union loves to happily fund us. We have quite a few paddlers that are part of their union, and so their support is very welcome in our club. And I think we also have some in-kind donations through a lot of vendors. Kavaihona has been a good friend to us in allowing us to utilize their facilities, parking facilities, also the Nanakuli Ranch for that event. And I think that's about it.
So my question to administration is, when you folks were scoring this application, you took into consideration that OHA is paying for the entire regatta? According to their budget, it adds up to the amount that we're giving them?
Well, you guys' mics are on. That's why she can't answer.
No, I cannot answer because I'm not the evaluator. I process, I make sure score is, the score is. That's a question that we would need to ask the evaluator, but when we're looking at budget, there isn't a question of, are we the full funder? Are there other, it's whether that the budget request is appropriate for the event. If you check the rubric, that's what the scoring is based on.
Okay, Trustee Souza.
Hello, Madam Chair. All you guys for showing up and Brother Alfred online. Just to shine some light on how long this program been going and how long I know Alfred been involved and for us in this room who paddled. And it's more than just a club, right? It's a community. It's always getting the kids off the streets and getting them into sports and active so they stay out of trouble. And this event is a large event. If you've ever attended, and I attended in the past, so I fully support this, whether we're funding the whole thing or not. It's a great event, and the impact that we make in this community is huge. Anyway, so mahalo. Thank you, guys.
Trustee who is, Kahele, I see you there.
Hi, thanks, Chair, and mahalo the participants for coming to testify today. I guess just continuing the line of questioning from our Chair Emerita for Kehao. If you look at the application sponsorship item number 21, this is the section where the applicant should list all the budgetary items for the event. I'm assuming that the attachment for their budget was where this would have gone, rather than the other items, the 5 items that they described as far as sponsorships and benefits for OHA and whatnot. This is really where the budget should be. Is that correct?
Yes, but they submitted a breakdown of their budget separately, so that's after the application. So it's there, but normally that's where it would have gone.
Okay. So then if we jump to that budget breakdown and the request was $15,000, what is this section that is redacted that the trustees are not able to see?
So that is a reduction of, I make up $3,000 because it's 2 days at 1,500 for ceremony / protocol prep. So part of the budget review is, our review is to look at what's being requested. And like I said earlier, remove what is considered entertainment or perks. So our staff person when they did their initial review, removed that and counted that as entertainment. But as we have consulted with our corp counsel, if you see, it's for ceremony, protocol prep, and workshops. So, we took we don't consider that entertainment and took it out.
I guess my issue is being able to make an informed decision on the budget without being able to know what the redacted item is, so that we can ensure that there's no conflicts. Why would OHA award the full $15,000 when we're deprived that information, the trustees?
So again, our staff person did that before it went out for evaluation, assuming that it wasn't eligible, but it is eligible. So I apologize again, because it's 2 days at $1,500. We didn't redact the notes. That would be $3,000. And other things in the application are normally highlighted for our evaluators. So that's something else that we've had to do is take that back so that we can provide clean copies. And all it is, like, for the application itself, is to be able to highlight where they're providing information so that evaluators know where that is. And then when it comes to budget, normally they'll do a review, say, okay, nope, this is not eligible, and send it out. But now I have had to go, when it comes back to me, look at what was and was not considered eligible. And I've had conversations with Everett to make sure, like, is it not? And sometimes it is hard to discern. But so this was done before it went to score, but when it came back, I looked at it and I said, nope, that's not ineligible. It is eligible. Unfortunately.
So what are so for the first, under the consulting event, what is redacted? What should that say?
It should say. So that's 3,000.
It's $3,000 for 2 days at 1,500 for ceremony, protocol, prep, master of ceremony for both days, and workshop. That's what it was for. And it was okayed by OTA.
No, I understand that. I can read that. What I can't read is what is redacted. So I just want to know what was redacted.
3,000.
Okay, and then what was redacted in the first column? There's 2 red redactions. What's the first redaction?
Oh,
What's the item?
Okay, hold on.
What would it come under?
Like, there's got to be a description, right? That would have been there.
yes.
Description and then the amount.
So it says kumuhula, $3,000. That's what it is.
Okay. And that would be to support, so you determined that wasn't for entertainment purposes. Maybe since we have our guests here with us, they can explain what that means. What does kumuhula mean, $3,000 for those 2 days?
So that would entail our kumuhulas to prep our keiki from our canoe club in the coming weeks for their time, their mana'o, all the supplies that the keiki will need to get ready for both events. It would also entail their portion of the cultural event on Saturday, on the first day.
Okay.
Any other questions, trustees?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
I was just wanting to make note that I'm seeing that in terms of the estimated number of Native Hawaiians attending, that it's 3,000, which is pretty impressive. And I would say that's about 60% more than half of the estimated attendees, and I'm sure there will be more. So I'm very excited to see any footage or photos, any material that you can provide to us, and with any organization that we are going to sponsor that that imagery can be shared with us so that we can share it with more of our beneficiaries so they know what you're doing and how we're collaborating together. Mahalo.
Anyone else? Okay, may I have a motion to approve?
Chair, could you clarify who moved and who seconded? Okay, roll call vote. Trustee Akaka?
Aye.
Trustee Akina? Trustee Galutaria?
Aye.
Trustee Kahele?
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay?
Kanalua.
Trustee Souza? Vice Chair Wahe'e? Oh, I'm sorry, he left the room. And Chair Alapa?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you for joining us. All right, now I'd like to move on to our next item on our agenda. This is for item BF number 25-36. Approval of OHA funding for a Ho'akuakua Lahui event sponsorship to Festivals of Aloha for the 2025 Na Kamehameha Commemorative Pa'u Parade and Ho'olaulea event on June 21st, 2025 in the amount of $7,500. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Trustee Akaka moved and seconded by Lindsay, Trustee Lindsay. Hello. Mahalo. All right, at this time, I'd like to call upon Kapunui Pu'u to take over this agenda for us, please.
Hi, aloha. So again, celebrating our Ali'i Kamehameha. So this event will be held on Maui. I believe traditionally it's been held in Lahaina, but they will be relocating to Central Maui. And this is for their festival and Ho'olaulea and parade. And recommendation is at $7,500.
Do we have any testifiers, Pohai?
Yes, online we have Daryl Fujiwara.
Aloha, Daryl.
Aloha, Trustee Alapa.
Aloha. Yes, please go ahead and begin your testimony.
Wonderful. Aloha and good afternoon, trustees. My name is Daryl Fujiwara. I've been involved with celebrating Kamehameha Ekahi and his illustrious ohana through the Na Kamehameha Commemorative Pa'u Parade in Ho'olaulea since 1999. And in 2011, I inherited the role of overall coordinator for my aunt, Nanalini Smythe. The event begins with Pa'u Parade and Ho'olaulea to follow with food, exhibits, Maui meat crafters, Hawaiian music and hula, and this year's event is set for Saturday, June 21st. From 1999 to 2023, the event was held in Lahaina with the parade taking place along Front Street. However, due to the recent fires, we were forced to relocate, and after working closely with the police department, we identified Kahumanu Avenue as the best alternative, offering a similar route length and improved safety. This said, changes in the traffic detail and a new by-the-book traffic officer resulted in significantly higher costs. His recommendations, combined with recent increase in off-duty police fees, have caused our expenses to triple compared to the what we've paid in the past. And throughout the years, I've come to know that this route actually is the original route where the parade began. So it's like returning home. The parade will begin at Baldwin High School, and it will follow along Kahumanu Avenue, and it will end at Kahumanu Shopping Center, where the Ho'olaulea will be held until 5 p.m. We will continue to hold the event in Central Maui for some time, not only because we cannot return to Front Street in safety, but we have received great feedback from the horse owners, from locals who are happy to have more events in Central Maui. We are thankful to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs for their consideration, and we hope to obtain your support today. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Daryl. Are there any questions, trustees? Chair Kahele.
Hi, thanks, Chair. And mahalo, Darrow, for logging on and participating. We really appreciate your attendance. Hey, so I guess my question for this is for Kehao, looking at the score sheet on the event scope. And when comparing this to basically a similar event that we just approved for Molokai, um, trying to figure out what's the difference. I think the budget was scored appropriately, but I'm not sure why, this annual Kamehameha Parade celebration on Maui isn't scored similarly to the annual parade celebration on Molokai in terms of event scope. Looking at the score sheet, it was graded a 39. That 1 point difference is the difference between 50% and 75% in terms of their total ask. And if you think that basically this event is very, very similar or as impactful as the Molokai event, if we should award them basically the max score for the event scope like we did Molokai, that would give them a 40, and then we can increase their award to 75% of what their ask was, if that's something you think the board should consider.
Yes, I do. I do think the board should consider that, given the very similar event from earlier. And
What would
so,
be what was their ask?
75.
I think it was 15. Let me double check. Yeah.
Original ask.
Yeah, Darrow, that was a question I was going to ask, and so I'm glad you brought that up. When I saw in your budget $10,500 for traffic control and police permit, I was surprised at that number, but I'm really glad you jumped out in front of it and explained that, because that's a huge part of your budget that just goes to traffic control and police permits.
Yeah. And so in the past, we've never had to have that big amount ever budgeted. And so last year was our first time. And so we're trying to get our bearings to figure out how we're going to take care of that in the future. And so this opportunity came, and I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to take care of it for this year. And then, of course, try and figure out sustainably what we can do in the future to help to take care of this.
Okay. Yeah, and looking at the budget authorization, it looks like there is still $26,741 in the grants category. Is that where this is coming from?
Yes. So there would be enough funds if you folks increase the amount. Yeah.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend the action item of 2536 and increase the sponsorship to 75% of the application based on adding one more point to the score sheet. So the final score for the application would be a 40, and that would increase the award from the Board of Trustees for this event to $11,250.
Second.
Okay, so what's a second? Trustee Lindsay, yeah, that's your island. Of course, so we seconded by Trustee Lindsay. And so we do a roll call.
Thank you,
Okay, we're
Chair.
going to vote on the amendment of the amended amount this time. Go ahead, roll call, please.
Kalme, I just want clarification on the amount that the amendment had
Okay,
suggested.
Okay, so what is the amount that we're looking? $11,250. Okay. And I'll reread the action item at this time. Action item BF number 25-36, approval of OHA funding. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment amount of $11,250.
Before we do so, I wanted to get more clarification from administration on as to how the scoring went and the rating, because looking on what the need is, I'm wondering if that is enough, what this amendment is providing. And if it's deserving.
Whether the score, I think I've been transparent. The scoring right now is what helps us determine what the amount is. And whether we think like we try to stick to it. That being said, I gotta admit, Kauiki Okapo, like $500 could do that. But just because we're trying to maintain like a clean process with lots of need for improvement, it doesn't mean that that's the amount that the board has to stick with. So again, at the end of the action item, you folks have the ability to change the recommended amount or to not fund. That's another option. So I think if the organizer, I think your question would be better suited for the organizer, and we don't have any objections, and there's enough funding.
Kalamai, yes, and I was gonna step in. It's Kalamai, Kapo Nui. I do feel that 11 is sufficient. I feel like it would help to get us to take care of the traffic control and police permitting for sure. And give us a little wiggle room as well, because it does vary for the police, because it depends on who signs up for that that duty that day. And so some of the normal police officers are at a lower rate compared to like a lieutenant or a captain. And so if a lieutenant and a captain show up, the price goes up. And those were taken into consideration when I created the budget. But at any given moment, a captain could roll in and say, "Oh, I'm taking this now, and we will have to pay, his fees." So it does give a really good wiggle room for us in the event that occurs. So mahalo for the question, Trustee Akaka.
Follow for that clarification. And I also wanted to ask, because I'm thinking beyond the traffic control and that amount that would be needed. So what I'm seeing is exhibitor and ho'olaulea support and so forth. And if you can give some breath to beyond the makai kokua that you might be budgeting for.
Oh,
that's-
wonderful. Yes. So for that portion, we like to take care of the people who come in who ike at our ho'olaulea, whether it's free lei making, and that's to pay for their time as well as for their materials. We'll also plan to have some nonprofits there who will be showcasing some of their programmatic things. And for them, we like to also take care of them as well, because we understand that it's a weekend. They're nonprofit, and they don't necessarily have the budgetary things to take care of. They're being off duty, not in the field, taking them out of their workspaces. We like to thank them for their time. We also take care of some of our the keiki activities, because all of those are free as well. And so anybody who is manning it, we usually get an organization to come and malama those things, so also to take care of them as well. So it's just for to take care of their time and just a donation.
And Mahalo, may I ask as well, because I'm just not seeing in here about how many Native Hawaiians and attendees in general you estimate to be there?
Kalamai. And I thought I put that number in there. I could be mistaken. Yeah. So at the parade this past year, I believe our police had counted about 3,000 in attendance for our first year. And then in our ho'olaulea, we got another about 3,000 for 3,500 or so in our ho'olaulea. And I want to say that at least half of those numbers are Native Hawaiian, especially the practitioners and the entertainers that were present.
Okay, well, and this is directed to the board. I mean, I think this gives us perspective on the sponsorship that we just awarded previously and the number of beneficiaries that are estimated to be served, and also how we have with this Merry Monarch that just happened this past week, our sponsorship to with those Native Hawaiian businesses that were at the SCP hotel, so that they didn't have to pay for that vendor cost. When I had after the parade, I wanted to spend a little time to at least walk around and interact with the vendors, see what mea they had there, and kind of get their mana'o. And when they asked maybe why I'm asking these questions, I just said, oh, I'm part of OHA, and part of our work was trying to help to defray the costs for the various vendors to be able to be here, and they were just so thankful. So when I share all this, I feel that applies to this specific sponsorship, and I'm feeling that it would make sense to give them the full amount beyond just the kokua for the maka'i, and so that they can do what they need in terms of exhibitor and ho'olalea support and so forth. And I'm thinking there's more that would be possible to list on here that might not be listed, that maybe you can share on to give us more perspective as to what maybe the need would be.
I would love to help utilize some of these funds for our commentary stations along the parade route, and of course, all of the mahalo mentions will have OHA at each of the stations, and that's for inclusion, to make sure like if people don't come to the ho'olaleo, they'll be able to also hear and be a part of it. And that's not, I don't necessarily think that's entertainment, but I do feel that it's something viable, and it'd mostly be for tenting, tables and chairs, equipment rental, because I understand that entertainment is not allowed. But yeah, parade, things around the parade, it's definitely bigger and more expensive than we've had.
Another mana'o I have as well is that given the recent history of what has happened on the island of Maui, I would imagine that this event would bring so much joy and something to look forward to for the community, and something for them to hako'o with each other.
You're absolutely right, Trustee Akaka. Last year, since it was our first year moving in, I was a little concerned about being sensitive. But what we found in doing events is that it does gather everyone together, because right now people are not checking on each other. Their aunties and uncles and nieces, they're not doing it. And these events help to force them, because they're trying to figure out where they're going to eat and if they have to move because they're getting kicked out today. Like those kind of challenges are their priority. But as we walked along the parade route, we saw so many Lahaina faces, and they said, this is our event. This is our Lahaina event. We need to be here. And there was a lot of tears. It was very beautiful to see the same ohana who would be lining Front Street were there. And then, of course, all of the support that came around all of these people who, kind of identified themselves as Lahaina people. Other community members came around to support them as well. It was very beautiful to see. And so thank you for that, Trustee Akaka.
Thank you for sharing all this perspective, Daryl. Mahalo for all you're doing.
Trustee Souza?
Mahalo, Madam Chair. Yeah, mahalo, Daryl. I do agree with what Trustee Akaka is saying, but I also agree that there's a process, and what Keha was talking about earlier. I think that 1 point difference puts us at a substantially different number, and we're able to justify based on what Daryl just said. I would prefer, this is just putting it out there, that we direct Keaho's team to go back, and based on what was said, and maybe there's more that the applicant can potentially provide, and potentially rescore this application. At the end of the day, we need to be able to justify, and as a board, that's very, very important. I will question if there is enough time to get this on the next meeting. The event does take place on the 21st of June. I believe we do have time. And then evaluate and come back to us and really give us the information that we need to feel comfortable with the decision that we're making. And Daryl knows I support him and every event that he puts on, and he's out there. If you guys know Daryl, and I'm not going to recuse myself, because if you guys don't know Daryl, that's a problem.
Now I do.
But I want to be able to give us an opportunity, and because I believe in the process, and I just, that's just a recommendation on my part, trustees.
So we're gonna
So-
have a withdrawal of that?
Yeah,
No,
I,
the motion is on the table.
I'll make them,
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
Chair.
sorry. Trust,
sorry, this is just discussion, so that was my
oh, okay,
recommendation.
okay. So, yes, go ahead, Chair Kahele.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Trustee Souza. You know, I think it's pretty easy to get 1 point. When just looking at the previous event we compared to on Molokai and looking at how the event scope was scored. And so getting to 1 point, getting it to a 40, increasing their amount to 11,250, I think that's very reasonable. If it's the trustees' desire to increase it beyond that, uh, you would need to get it to a 45. And that requires more work, right? Because now you're looking to go from a 39 to a 45, that's 6 points. I think that's not something we should do on the fly. Keha would need to go back to her team and whoever evaluated this and work with Daryl to rescore it. But I think 11,250 is definitely a significant increase from where we are now. But if the board wants to go higher, then we should put a little bit more work into this. And it looks like we have time, June 21st, and I'm sure Chair, yourself and the full board can make this happen. So I'm good either way, but we'll defer to your decision.
Go ahead.
Mahalo, Chair Kahele, mahalo, Madam Chair. And then again, on the flip side, the applicant also did say that 11,250 was sufficient, and there is a motion on the table. So if I understand that it prolongs the process and being able to lock certain vendors in, and especially the Makai on Maui, and so it's I think it's maybe we should get the applicant's input as well. But of course, with more funding, we can do more, right? And I
Yes,
think that's
yes.
ultimate goal.
And I
Yeah.
think what Kapo Nui had shared earlier is that it is at your discretion. You take into consideration the scoring and the numbers, but at the end of the day, the trustees have the last word and like an understanding as to the gravity. It's your guys' discretion to decide who and what and who is deserving and what that amount is. If it is within your guys' means, it's totally in your hands. And like Trustee Souza and I had shared earlier, yes, 11,250 would totally be sufficient, and we're very grateful for anything that the OHA Office of Hawaiian Affairs would like to contribute to our celebration.
I have Akina and then Trustee Lindsay right after.
Thank you. I think it's remarkable, Trustee Souza, that you and I were about to say the very same thing. We're on the same wavelength, which is a great thing. And Daryl, congratulations. Looking forward. I hope I'll be able to see the Pa'u parade over there.
Yes, we usually go live. You can definitely watch it on Facebook. We plan to go live again this year.
Very good. I just wanted to say this. We have a good faith struggle going on here at the board over a process. And I say good faith because we all want what is good and right. And we want to use the funds that we have in the best way we can for our beneficiaries. So I'm very proud of this in intentionality. But as Trustee Souza had mentioned before, there's a process, and we have to be careful to honor all the people, all the stakeholders involved in the process. There must be fairness. I wouldn't want another group to feel that they didn't get a certain amount, but could have if they had gotten a discretionary point or so at the last minute from the board. And so I do want to reaffirm that we want to move to the place where we don't have to do that. We want to also honor to the best we can the different roles that are to be played in our processes of governance and management. This is a little example here of how it will help for us to become more clear as to what role the board plays in governance by pronouncing policy, and what role the administration plays, and what freedom and they have and responsibility they have to make decisions. No complaints here. I'm just pointing this out as an opportunity for us to clarify this more and more, so that we don't, so that in the future, when we have a proposal brought before us, an evaluation completed and so forth, there can be strong affirmation, and everyone can feel good about that. Thank you.
Mahalo. And yes, go ahead, Chair Marita. Oh, you didn't have anything? Okay. Okay, she's calling for the vote. Let's do it. So it's going to be for the amendment of the amount of $11,250. Roll call, please.
Trustee Akaka, Trustee Aquino,
Aye.
Trustee Galutaria,
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay, Trustee Souza, Trustee Vice Chair Wahe,
Yes.
and Chair Lapa.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Hey, did I vote?
Oh,
Nobody-
I'm sorry.
Kahele, yeah, Kahele,
Yes.
aye.
Mahalo nui, trustees,
practice.
for all of your support. And I didn't do this earlier, but I did want to mahalo all of you for supporting Molokai as well. I was there when we were reinvigorating it on Molokai. And
Sorry, Daryl. Call my Daryl.
Yeah, hold on, Daryl.
They still gotta come back to me.
oh, Kalamai.
So it's going to, okay, the round, okay, now it's your turn. Who, did we get Kai? Yes, okay, and Trustee Souza.
Aye.
There you go. Okay, now we're going to reread the motion for action item BF 25-36. Approval of OHA funding for Akokoa Lahui event sponsorship to Festivals of Aloha for the 2025 Na Kamehameha Commemorative Pa'u Parade and Ho'olaulea event on June 21st, 2025 in the amount of $11,250.
So move.
It's
But we
already
have to
there.
change the amount. We have to change the amount.
We'll just take a roll call vote. Yeah, we're going, okay, so we're going to take a roll call on that.
Trustee Galutaria, Trustee Lindsay, Trustee Kahele,
Aye.
Trustee Souza,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wahe, Chair Lapa.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Phew. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Mahalo, everyone, for that. And I believe we are down to our next item up is for BF. Well, that was BF 2536.
Thank you,
Sorry, next
Daryl.
page. Action item, this is on number E, letter E, action item BF 25-37. And this is for the approval of OHA funding for the Ho'akoakoa Lahui event sponsorship to the Hawaii Academy of Recording Arts for the 2025 48th annual Na Hoku Hanohano Awards event on June 21st, 2025 in the amount of $15,000.
So moved, Madam.
Mahalo, Trustee Wahe'e. Second, Trustee Lindsay. And this time I'd like to call upon our kapunui pu'u to take on this agenda item.
So yes, this is for the Hawaii Academy of Recording Arts for the Nahoku Hanohano Awards. I did want to point out that this event, so for Ho'akoakoa, you can only, we normally only sponsor one event within the fiscal year. However, the organizers disclosed that due to constraints with venue, they're having it in June. So last one was in August. But because this is only a once a year event, we've made an exception for supporting this event.
Okay, mahalo. At this time, do we have any testifiers? No testifiers for this item. And do we have any discussion at this time?
Hold on, we have a testifier now.
Okay, and who is our I see we have Kalena Parrish. Okay, at this time we have Kalena, please, give your testimony.
Aloha, aloha mai kako.
Aloha.
Aloha,
She's-
Kalena.
My name is Kalena Parrish. I am the president of the Hawaii Academy of Recording Arts, the organization that holds the annual Nahoku Hanohano Awards. On behalf of our Board of Governors, I want to extend our deepest mahalo to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs for your
Get a
consideration.
little louder.
So sorry,
Sorry.
for your consideration with this award funding to
There
help
it is. There
support
it is.
the upcoming 48th annual Nahoku Hanohano Awards. This year's theme is Eho Mai Ka'ike, calling us to remember the knowledge passed down through generations and the foundation of our organization that was established by our forefathers. With this theme, we hope to honor the long journey that brought the Hawaii Academy of Recording Arts here, celebrating almost 50 years of supporting Hawaii's music industry. Last year, the total cost of the Hoku Awards was approximately $230,000, and your support tremendously helps us in securing continued success of this event. On June 21st, 2025, the Nahoku Hanohano Awards will feature Pualu Makeke with over 20 local vendors. We'll have educational opportunities to help elevate our music industry focused on branding, publishing, and marketing. A red carpet honoring our finalists and this year's Lifetime Achievement honorees, and a beautiful night dedicated to celebrating the best in Hawaii's music. All of these wonderful things will also be broadcasted live on Hawaii News Now. Last year, we collected a total of 9.5 million impressions from our live and encore broadcasts and had approximately 750 in-person attendees. This year, we have already sold 700 seats and are projected to sell another 200 tickets in the next 2 months. We're also hopeful to reach over 10 million impressions from our broadcast. So again, from our organization, mahalo nui loa for supporting our lahui and our Hawaii music industry.
Mahalo, Kalena. Do we have any questions from our, I'm sorry, oh, I see you. Go ahead. Chair Kahele.
Hey, I have a question. You know, we have several of our trustees that are incredible entertainers. Any of our trustees up for Hoku Awards this year?
Nope. Not this year.
Not this year. Okay. Hey, then I already had a question for Kehao. You know, looking at the application, and the number 5, the organization's governing board and executive team redactions. Can you explain the thought process behind that, the redactions there?
It's in the app. They redacted from the app. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, application, first page, number 5.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why that's redacted. You know, why number 5 is redacted, but in the action item, we did disclose and like have the list of all the members, and so it does include 2 of our trustees as well as our senior director of Hawaiian Cultural Affairs. I don't know why it was redacted, I'm gonna be honest.
My only
However,
comment then
the
is, yeah, my only comment is to just be very careful about redactions, because of, you know, we get those questions that come up when things are redacted, and if we do redact them, then we should have a pretty good reason why we redact them.
Okay, sorry. So Everett just informed me that he thinks it may be because there's contact information for those members, those listed members. So even in number 2, while we are disclosing some names, we've taken out any personal contact information. So that may be the reason for so. But point taken on, you know, being maka'ala about redactions or even highlighting and stuff. So we will be vigilant about that moving forward.
Because this item under item 5, it doesn't ask for contact info, right? It says list organizations, governing board member names and titles. It doesn't ask them for emails, phone numbers, social security numbers, or any type of personally identifiable information. So again, and to that point, when we redact, we have questions. So when we do redact, whoever is prepping these documents, we just have to have a good reason why we redact, because if we're asking questions, then the general public could be asking those same questions as well.
So I'm looking at the clean copy, and it does provide phone numbers for, so all those redactions are phone numbers and emails.
So in that event, then would the initial recipient on the administrative team, when receiving the application, do you think it's good practice for them to go back to say, hey, can you resubmit by removing that information because it's not asked for it and it's not necessary? And it's forcing us into redacting?
I mean, we could, again, I'm just keeping in mind the bandwidth of the team that has to engage in this back and forth with applicants. Yes. And then that being said, though, we have fully disclosed all of the board members in the action item. You know, we've added the governing board members, we've added the mission of the organization. So it is there, but I take your point, right? You do that, like, we're gonna get more questions.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, as I'm looking at it, again, I'm looking at the clean copy, get phone numbers, get emails, so this is why it was redacted.
Yeah, and it's not, we're not asking for that information, right, in the item number 5. So it's not necessary, but because of that, it forces us into redacting that information. So maybe when the bandwidth improves, that's something to add into our checklist for the staff and the team that initially receives the application. Hopefully it's not a last minute application and it's something that we have time where we can then return back to the applicant and say, hey, can you remove this information because it's not necessary for what we're asking for. Thank you.
Mahalo, Trustee Akaka.
This is more an acknowledgement and mahalo to Kalena. And I want to read this as to give context. So in front of me, it says the event fosters a strong sense of lahui by celebrating the unique contributions of Hawaiian music to the cultural landscape and by inspiring future generations to carry forward these cherished traditions. And you now serving as the president, and with the beautiful musical background that you are born into, and that the music that your ohana have provided to us through the years, and now with your chosen ohana, I just want to mahalo you and acknowledge how wonderful it is to see the next generation taking on this kuleana.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Trustee Souza.
Mahalo, Madam Chair. I just want to make note, I do support this organization. I do support the president of this organization and the great job that she's doing, but I will, however, be recusing myself from this vote as I am a board member. Trustee Calotera?
May I?
Go ahead.
Yes. Members, the board has been going through an interesting intergenerational change over the past several years. And one of our OHA family just finished his stint as the president of the academy, Hailama. And it was his job to at least bridge the 2 generations. So now it's really interesting that Kalena is the president, because we feel very comfortable moving forward with her leadership. I too will be recusing myself because I'm a current governor on the board. So I'm just letting you know.
Got it.
Hope we have the vote.
Yes, I think we do.
Mahalo Hailama for your service in Hara.
Okay, let's call for the vote, please. Trustee Akaka. Trustee Akina. Trustee Kahele.
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay. Vice Chair Waihe'e. Chair Lapa.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Congrats, mahalo, and we'll see you
Thank you so much. Have a
June
great
21st. Aloha.
Aloha.
All right, at this time, we're down to our last 2 items, F, which is deferred for vote from our last BF committee meeting on March 23rd, 2025. And this is for action item BF 25-27. It's an approval to carry over $140,000 of fiscal year 2024 grant carryover funds to fiscal year 2025, and then reallocate from the grants program budget to the strategy and implementation Economic Stability Program budget for execution of the Mahi Microfund, a program to alleviate water bill and property tax costs for Native Hawaiian farmers statewide. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Mahalo. And this time I'd like to call upon Kapunui Pu'u to take on this agenda item.
I'm gonna call up our Director of Economic Resiliency, Bonnie.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Mahalo for having me back to speak to this. In front of you should be the AI that was submitted last week for further discussion today. I did want to note that I made some updates to page, let's see, page 4, just based on the discussion that Trustee Kahele had shared last week. I wanted to add a few alternative options, Chair Kahele, just so that there is that for discussion as well. We are asking for this funds to be rolled over into this current fiscal year, but also to roll it into S&I out of grants. This AI started before I started here at OHA, so I don't have a lot of backstory to it. But what I do know, it was the intention for S&I to facilitate this program. So I'm not too sure to Trustee Kahele's question why it landed in grants, but I know I can best and most effectively process it if it was with the S&I budget.
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Souza.
Mahalo, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions, and I apologize that I was not here last week. This 140,000, this was approved in May. I believe May 22nd, 2024, and it was a Mahi program that originally we talked about $5,000. I believe I asked Ramona in that meeting if we could up it to $20,000. I didn't think $5,000 was sufficient enough of that 140. And I guess from that time to now, almost a year, we haven't found anyone to administer this program. Sounds like it. Or the intentions was to have a 501c3 administer the program, and so therefore the 140,000 is still around. Where are we at with identifying that 501c3? Go ahead.
Okay. So effectively, since it was approved in May of last year, the PR was pulled in this fiscal year. So that created a discrepancy to spend the money, which also then created a discrepancy to pursue anything on this AI. So for me to inherit it and to facilitate this project would be the first attempt of actually doing so. So, and if I may, the recommendation is that we identify a native CDFI to help facilitate this funding. So I don't see a challenge on behalf of the 501c3 perspective.
Madam Chair, if I may follow up. And there's 3 CDFIs, right, that we could potentially have them distribute these funds, right? Is that correct? Okay. And who are we looking at? Who's the 3?
So I'm recommending native CDFIs. They are required to have a higher focus on our beneficiaries. Then 3 native CDFIs that I have identified that have the current native CDFI status. And I say current only because recently the federal government has been changing the rules on how to maintain native CDFI status. So we only have 3 that have that meet the current expectation of servicing 60% Native Hawaiians or more within their affinity group. Of those, there's the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, there's Lei Ho'olaha, and then Hawaiian Lending and Investment. I'm happy to also forward this to you as well, trustee.
Sorry, Madam Chair, if I may follow once more. So to my understanding, either way, the budget is going to get carried over, right? If the board approves it today, just depends where it's going to go. If it goes to SNI department, it's going to go through the same process, right? We're going to identify the CFIs to distribute the funds. My question would be, and I think I already know the answer, is because we don't have the capacity within the grants department to distribute these funds. My thing is, the process is still the same way. If it goes to SNI right now and then we hand it over, and then if it stays within the grants department and we hand it over, so there's no difference. So my question would be, why does it have to go to SNI department and not stay within the grants department? No? Oh, sorry.
That was our question last week.
Yeah, yeah.
That was.
Yeah. So it's my understanding that with the grants process, for them to facilitate it to the point of being fundable, could potentially be a 6 to 8 month process. It's my understanding also that under SNI facilitating it through the RFP process, I can effectively get this on the ground running and hopefully a target to execute date somewhere around the middle to end of August. And so I can have a faster turnaround time if it's an RFP process versus the grants process. And that's just what I've put together in the research I've done before coming to before the board today.
My recommendation would be actually to keep it within the grants department and potentially pooling a couple of members from SNI to help execute. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, strategic and implementation division, I mean, we're helping to implement our strategic plan, and part of that is grants, right? So I don't see how it would be a problem pulling some guys over and giving them more kuleana or additional kuleana to execute this within the grants department. I believe it's cleaner that way. Madam Chair, I'd like to amend the motion.
What is your amendment?
I'd like to amend the motion for the approval to carry over 140,000 of fiscal year 2024 grant carryover funds to fiscal year 2025 and remain in the grants department for execution of the Mahi microfund program to alleviate the water bill and property tax costs for Native Hawaiian farmers statewide.
Second.
It's moved in second.
I have a question.
Who was seconded? Kahili? Okay, and yes, discussion. Someone had a question. Who was that?
No, people are lined up.
Oh, okay, trustee Wahe.
Yeah, me too.
It's on the main motion. I guess I could try to Madam Chair, I guess I'll try to
Go ahead.
see if I can fit it into this amendment. It's just wait.
Should we take recess on this?
We don't need a motion. We don't need just need the
Well, we need to carry it over.
in the fiscal year.
Madam Chair.
Yes, trustee Wahe.
I'm trying to just, I want to understand the process. So we're going to eventually identify and engage with the 501c3 to administer the fund. Do they, like, how does the money, are they administering it in such a way where the money stays with OHA and gets released, or are they getting
The whole thing.
the whole thing? That's what I'm wondering. Why, if they're getting the whole thing, why does it matter where the money is at any given time, right before they get it?
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't even need any action because the money is there
Still
right
there.
now, right? 140,000 is in the grants.
But it's still in the grants. It just stays there.
Carry over to the microfund. Yeah.
Sorry, your question was, what's the difference if they are distributing it in the same way? If S&I gives it to a 501c3 and if Grants gives it to a 501c3, I think it's just the turnaround time in the way that Grants is going to identify and distribute those funds. The RFP process has a 32-day window and Grants has a longer process.
We're not, okay, but you're just transferring it from OHA to the 501c3, right? They're not administering the program. So I'm trying to understand why it matters if it's just OHA. I mean, it could be like, they're not transferring it as if the 501c, are they transferring the budget as if the 501c3 is applying for a grant and getting the money to, but if there are vendors, like, I feel like Stacy, here's my, see, so last week I wasn't trying to criticize or even make recommendations. I'm questioning it because the action item's here, and I'm just trying to clarify what's going on.
Yeah.
To me, like, okay, I feel like the board, we give directives to admin, we approve a budget. However, Stacy wants to, that's why I wish she was here to hear this. However, she wants to administer those directives, that's her business. If she wants to, direct, let's say, if let's say one of her department's grants is not up to, not able to fulfill the directive the board gave her, to me, I feel like it's her business. She can use any of her staff to pivot, or like she should have that kind of freedom to say, well, I'll pull guys from here to, cover this so they can do it and not have to come to the board to get us to approve every move she makes when she pivots. And when I read the original the time frame, okay, so what Grants was going to do or whatever, it's like, okay, further develop the microfund program, utilize the template from the grants template to do this and identify a 501c3. Okay, I feel like if Grants wasn't able to do that, I don't see why Stacy couldn't just ask somebody else to do that. That doesn't require a budget or anything, and that's her business. The only thing I see us needing to approve is maybe the carryover of the budget. But maybe I'm not right. So I'm just trying to understand what's going on. Partially because if Stacy, I don't want her to think she has to come back to the board every time she pivots on an administrative level, like this. And that's just going to be maybe a lot of meetings, with this kind of thing on it. So my question is, why? I feel like Stacy should, based on the action item that we already approved, just move the money to the 501c3 regardless of where it is.
Need to have Everett. Should we have Everett come? Yes, please, Everett, if you wouldn't mind, come to the table here and see how we can address this.
Good afternoon, trustees. So I think the issue is the funds are currently sitting in the grants budget, right, transferred from FY24. However, we're looking at other ways in which these funds can get dispersed to an entity or organization that's going to administer those funds. Typically, the grants program is just looking to, issue grants under the 1017 process and not engage in these types of RFPs or solicitations to seek the services of an administrator of this type of program. And that's where I think SNI is looking to possibly use a request for proposals, which is like a state procurement process, to go out and seek that administrator. That is something that can be done from the SNI program, and it's typically not something that the grants program would do because they typically are expending funds through the 1017 grants process, putting out a solicitation or processing things again directly as grants that would then get have to go through our grants approval process, including coming before this board. So we can go that route and still bring on a entity, assuming that they otherwise comply with our grant statute, which among other things requires that to be a nonprofit organization that we would give those funds to. But again, typically the grants program isn't putting out state procurement code solicitations that I think is what's being contemplated here. And I think that is also the reason why we are seeking to have those funds transferred to SNI, because any transfer out of the grants budget also requires board approval. So there's kind of a two-step process here. One is the approval of the carryover of fiscal year 24 funds into FY25. And then it's also a movement of those funds out of the grants budget into SNI budget or potentially somewhere else. But that would then allow us to explore these other means of getting these funds out, and we're not kind of locked in through the normal grants programs process of issuing through a 1017 grant.
Okay, I have Kai first, so go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Hey, I asked Chris in procurement to come to the boardroom, and if he's in the room, can we have him come up to the board table as well?
There he is.
And while we're waiting for him to do that, I share the same concerns that Chair Souza and Trustee Wahe have as well. I mean, I'm all for reauthorizing it. I think if that's what we need to do as we approach the end of the fiscal year, no problem, great. I'm still not understanding why we need to move it from grants to SNI, as just explained by Everett, and why we can't accomplish the same result where it currently is. And so, Chris, can you or help Pony explain the RFP process versus the grants process, and why this might be necessary for the board to consider?
All right. Good afternoon, trustees.
Good afternoon.
All right. I'm not as familiar with the grants 1017 solicitation process. I can, however, speak, of course, on the procurement process for RFPs. So I'm not sure. Sorry, I apologize. I haven't been listening into this meeting, but the RFP process typically takes 32 days of public posting. It's a requirement by the state. It's not price-based. It's not low-cost based. It's based on evaluation criteria deemed to be the best value to OHA. Other considerations are, other than evaluation criteria, 32 days public posting. Yeah, I mean, there's other considerations in that, but if we're comparing them to the grants process, I think that those are maybe the bigger differences.
But I guess the question is, originally when this was approved in 2024, the $140,000 included in the grants budget was to be dispersed, I guess, in one lump sum to a nonprofit 501c3. Is that correct?
For the grants process.
Yeah, I'm not. This is a question for Pony and Kehao. So it was to be allocated to a 501c3 to distribute this Mahi microloan program for agricultural uses for small farmers. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I think the challenge is that it was miscoded when it was pulled as an account in Oracle. So for whatever reason, the person who pulled the PR number in August pulled it as a grants coded account number. And that was discovered through my process of trying to figure out how to facilitate this and do our due diligence to get this microfund underway is when I found out that although it sits under S&I, the Oracle account that was created pulled the grant 3800 code on it. So, and I don't know why that happened. I can't speak to that, but I do know that it ties my hands on how I facilitate it. And I'm willing to work with grants. I just have to get more familiar on what it is that they need to do to make this happen, and how I can best support them. The feedback that I've gotten from them is just the workload and the turnaround time will be 6 to 8 months. And when I heard that, I thought, oh dear, we've already gone into this a year later and we haven't facilitated this program yet. And so my intent and all I want to do is get this done and get it done as quickly as possible. And in my discoveries and talking with Chris specifically, I can do so under the procurement process and get this underway in August versus another 6 to 8 months from now.
And
Trustee-
that would
Sorry.
be dealing with 3 CDFIs, different than what was originally intended by the board, which would have been to work with a nonprofit 501c3.
Oh, yeah, correct. Well, and CDFIs, I do believe are 501c3s, which is why I went and did the research on working with them. They're just ma'a to facilitating funding in this way, and they do work with the affinity group that we're looking to work with, which are the Native Hawaiian Mahi. And so just with all that research, I thought this would be the best route to facilitate. And then the question became, how do we dispense the funding to them in the most swift way possible? And that's the conclusion that I came to was this process.
Okay, and then last question, Chair. I guess maybe Chair, Waihe'e, when he was the RM Chair, can explain so I can understand it better. Why was the intent to move 140,000 to a single nonprofit to then distribute these agriculture and farmer grants? Why wouldn't we just, do it through the normal grants process that we're doing? We're distributing $500,000 worth of grants and sponsorships through our Hoa Koa program. Why can't we do it the same way through grants, through various different farmers and agriculture individuals? Only because when you do go to a CDFI or you do go to a 501c3, there are operational costs, right? 5 to 10% of this grant, $14,000 is going to be taken off the table just to administer this. Why aren't we doing this in-house?
I'm going to answer that one. So it is a capacity issue for why we wouldn't do it in-house. So we had to do kana'aho in-house, very laborious, like just a lot of processing. It's taken a toll. It did take a toll on our team. Others had to be involved. So it's a bit easier when it's the big contracts that we are administering, and then we do have a solicitation process. But this would, I'm gonna say we don't have the manpower to distribute what would be several small micro grants, right? Which is what it's being called, to carry out this grant.
Go ahead, Everett.
I think the other consideration is that we would be limited to the types of entities that we're able to disperse these funds to. So under 1017, there's only 4 types of organizations that we can, or 4 types of entities that we can disperse grant funds to: a nonprofit organization, a for-profit corporation that's a subsidiary of a nonprofit, a cooperative association, or an individual who in the board's determination can carry out the services requested. So that might create an issue if we are, say, looking to provide funding to a business that's not a sole proprietor, a single individual, and that would limit our ability to fund such an entity. through the grants 1017 process.
Trustee Lindsay?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Sorry, one more thing.
Go
I
ahead.
think there's also, maybe to Mona's point, tax considerations as to how we're able to actually disperse these directly to either individuals or businesses, and that there will be tax implications and a need to, and that would also eat into the aid that's provided to these farmers.
Okay, go ahead, Trustee Lindsay.
First of all, I was going to ask if our CEO has the authority to move the 140,000 without the board's approval. And I think she does. 10% of the budgeted PAYA. Yeah, so that grants got millions.
No, but excuse me, Chair, the normal budgetary approval or the budgetary authority for adjustments like that do not apply to the grants category.
I see.
So we cannot move $1 out
Okay.
or into the grants budget without board approval.
So I just like to share with the rest of the board that the board did approve 1 year for our administration to issue all the charter checks because we couldn't find an acceptable entity to distribute it for us. All the Hawaiian charter school checks were distributed by OHA. And then the Kanaho grants. So it is possible for us to do it and put more money into the entity that is asking for the grant. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Everett.
If I could maybe just distinguish those past instances with maybe what we're looking at here. I think for the Kana'aho grants, one, those are also going to individuals that were impacted by that. So that did in that case meet the 1017 criteria who could receive those funds. And then there is also I don't know if it's an exception, but that didn't incur the same tax liabilities because these were that disaster aid, disaster relief payments. In this case, that is, I think, a very specific exception that wouldn't apply here to just general, right, the costs of being a farmer. And then again, additionally, the payments to the schools, those are also directed to either a nonprofit organization or potentially a government entity, which is not subject to those same funding restrictions. So that is also different in this case. We don't have we potentially have farmers who again might be trying to receive this money as a business rather than an individual family.
So Chair, just a last point
Yes.
is that I think that this committee should look into a possible nonprofit for OHA so that we can do exactly what we're asking for right now.
I hope so. I really would like to see that happen. Go ahead, Trustee Wahe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I am I'm understanding what you guys are saying now, and I just want to just re-explain where I was coming from. In my opinion, in the action item that we approved, I feel like it does give Stacy the ability to realign the money without board approval once the 501c3 is found, because it's in here. The steps are they're going to develop the criteria for this program, and then once that's and identify a 501c3, and then the 501c3 encumbers all the money. That's what we gave her the authority to do. But maybe I don't know. I can see why you may not feel that you might be hesitant to just use that and want to do it the way you're doing it, because it seems more like safer to do it that way. and to just reallocate the money out of grants directly to the 501c3 with Stacy, based on Stacy's authority, that I'm thinking this action item gave her, maybe it's more proper and less likely to get audited, or I don't know.
Good, Trustee Souza.
Well, Madam Chair, if I can go back to the earlier question and kind of speak on the original intent of this, because I know you guys weren't here. I think the whole point, and getting back to Chair Kahele's point of the 501c3, the conversation that I did have with Stacy initially was, of course, to raise the amount, and I did bring it up to Ramona as well in the meeting, to raise it to 20,000 from 5, or between 5 and 20, and having that, that, I guess, chart to where everyone would fall in the application process and based on need. I think the original intent was to identify a nonprofit that already served in this field, right? Already distributed in the agriculture aspect of things. And I think for me, 1 year later, and I mean, I can't imagine how many people are behind on their property taxes and water bill right now because we weren't able to come to their aid. So for me, that's a big issue, but you guys weren't here, so I'm not going after the grants department or you with S&I, but Pony. But I'm just saying these kind of things are very, very important, and we shouldn't even be having this conversation today. That's the reality of it. This money should have been spent last year, and we're not gonna go to ask who gave a wrong number or put a wrong number or whatever it may be. I think this is super important. The reason why the board initially voted for this is because at the time it was crucial to get these monies out in that area. And our Mahi farmers came to us and asked for help. And I think that's why initially this program was going to be created. And so, number one, we're moving on, but I'm going to stand by what I said earlier, and I believe this needs to stay in the grants department. It needs to be carried over for sure because we need to use it. And then we got to work together to identify who we're going to give it to distribute. And I think we need to work together with S&I, potentially coming over to grants, special assignment or whatever it may be. And I think at that point, Stacy may have that discretion, right, to get the job done and help the different, like Kehao is stepping in as that grants director, and she has multiple hats. So we want to make sure you get the help as well, Kehao. Anyway, so mahalo, thank you.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, Trustee Kalka.
Paulo, I have a few things I wanted to ask, and one of them is what was just asked of, and so what the first point is regarding data, 2 is regarding time frame, 3 is regarding if either or both include a process that acknowledges OHA, and then 4 is what would it take for us to do, whether it's creating a nonprofit or so forth, and what is the give and take, what is the better outcome in terms of what that would look like from taxing to overhead costs for another organization to do it and so forth. So starting with the data, do we have the data of about how many are affected, how many would be served, how many are seeking out or potentially we would be helping?
I do not, but I do intend in the RFP process to make that part of the contract request that they provide us and collect that data so that we do have it moving forward.
Yes, the amended motion is still on the table, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're going to call for the vote
On the
amended motion, yes. Okay,
Madam Chair.
yes,
May I read the amended motion again?
please do.
Thank you. I'd like to move to approve the carryover of 140,000 of fiscal year 2024 grant carryover funds to fiscal year 2025 and remain in the grants department for execution of the Mahi microfund program to alleviate water bill and property tax costs for the Native Hawaiian farmers statewide.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Oh, okay, thank you, Chair Kahele. He did second it. Yes, discussion here with,
Yes, Madam Chair. By way of discussion, I'd like to ask administration a question.
sure.
You came here today with a proposal to us. What do you feel about the amended version that's on the table? I know you don't have the advantage of Stacy being with you, but what would administration's recommendation be to us?
Because this originated out of SNI, I would turn off your mic. Okay, so because this originated out of SNI, I would defer to SNI to comment on the recommendation. That being said, I'm gonna say we're gonna, my manao is that we'll figure out how to make it work. But yeah, I would allow Pony to comment.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. It is just my intention on getting this done as quickly as possible. And in my research that I've done to try and put all these pieces together for you guys today, I learned that the RFP process with Chris would effectively allow me to do that. I wasn't able to get that kind of information in regards to the grants. I walked away from speaking to whoever I could in the grants department with a 6 to 8 month turnaround. And that's really the only reason why. But I'm happy to do whatever I need to do to get it done as quickly as possible. If it stays in grants, then I will do my best to figure out within their capacity how I can still effectively do that.
And to follow up, how quickly could this get done through SNI?
So with the 32-day turnaround and then the contracting process, I'm estimating that we may be able to have a contract executed by the middle to end of August of this year.
Okay, Trustee Akaka.
I mean, I wanted to finish asking my question. So one of it being is it where in either or both of the processes, it would include an acknowledgement of OHA? Because what we found is that oftentimes when we are we are putting funds towards an entity, OHA's name, OHA's reason why we exist, what we do gets lost along the way. And that entity is the one that is acknowledged. And then we're left back with the age-old question of why does OHA exist? What does OHA do for us? How does it even impact us? What do we have to show for it? So my question again is there is the process including where OHA is properly acknowledged and then they let us know that we're acknowledged and then we recirculate that acknowledgement? So often that's
Thank you. From what I understand, Trustee, in the RFP process under the scope of services and in my experience in working with ASB and AHO, we were able to put that in the contracting process. I'm not sure, I can't speak to the grants process. I'm not too sure what happens in there.
what would that take for us to edit that in?
Yeah, I would include it in my scope of services and requirements under the RFP process.
So taking into consideration the speed that we want to put this towards to get this out, and then the overhead costs and the taxing and so forth with a nonprofit, this is, you believe, the best way, cost-wise, expediting wise, and so forth. And do you feel that having how many from SNI being brought into grants, like that could keep us at that 1 month time frame?
I'm not too sure about the contracting process with grants, and so it's hard for me to speak to that. It doesn't sound like it's the same process, and because Chris works solely with the RFP process, he's been able to give me the best information. My takeaway with what I spoke with the grants team is it's 6 to 8 months to effectively execute that. So if there's any other information I might not know, Keha, I don't know if you know if there's any other information, but I'm reporting today what I was able to gather from both departments.
So I will comment. I think the 6 to 8 month period is like when we put out full solicitations, right? And so it's for multiple grants. We're similar to Ho'akoakoa. We're doing all the reviews, making sure that people, they're qualified, whatever. The process is much more robust, super rigorous. And then there's the external evaluator component of the process, and then we get to awarding, and we usually come here before the board. But that's, in my limited experience and knowledge about that here, That's, again, we're talking about, I mean, this is where we've awarded millions of dollars, right? Back in the May, June, and then we came back in September and October, I believe. So in the, Kalamai, in the spirit of just trying to figure out how to make it work, a couple things, and good thing we got the attorneys in the room. So one, because this is it's one grant, it's $140,000. What I would want to do is figure out how to, like, we don't have to use that same bulky process I make up. But again, I'm gonna look at the attorneys, like, can't we modify the process for this specific grant, but still being in compliance with 1017. So that's one thing that I would put on the table. What it looks like, I don't know, but again, just trying to figure out how we move forward. The second thing is we do have board directed grants, like the charter school support. I don't know a lot about it, but this is where we're dispersing $3 million every year, right, to Kalo to then disperse to the charter school. So I perhaps Mona or Everett can share more about that, but I'm wondering if that could be an option for how to disperse more quickly, but still, malama this kala within the grants budget. Yeah.
Trustee Souza?
Is there anybody available from the grants department that can kind of help answer the questions as far as the process? Because I mean, number one, my question would be the current right, Pony, when you guys talked about it, when you got your information, Pony, 6 to 8 months is a process. Only because right now our grants team ain't at full capacity, right?
Yep.
So like I suggested earlier, if we to take special assignment guys, put them over to grants, get this done, how long would that take? Right? And to me, it's going to be the grants process, right? It's not going to be I'm speaking just to the grants process. If we're to go to the grants process, it's not a special type of grant. We're putting a solicitation, we're putting out. If the grants department was at full capacity, and so we put another 3 members over, could we get it done within a month? And I think that somebody within the grants department would be able to answer that for us. I mean, potentially. Yeah.
Be here or Kalamai.
Is it?
So I'm trying to see if
Is it Edna here or
Yeah.
Angela?
Edna
Oh, Angela too, yeah.
and Angela, who just returned. So right before the vote. Okay. Kalamai, yeah, I'm not getting a
Are we-
response right now.
Well, I mean,
Are you
that's,
trying to, go ahead, Trustee Souza.
well, I guess there's a motion on the table. And
Okay,
I guess we
yes.
can figure out the process and the timeline. There's
So it's amendment,
that was
right? We
seconded.
already put
Yeah,
that on the
yeah.
table. Okay, so I'm going to have our council, now we have Kirkwood.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So there's a 1-month process or a 6-month process that we're looking at, basically, to bring it down to the ground level. And ironic that we're talking about farming and we want to get the money into the ground. It's really interesting. But is it possible for us to internally just expedite the process? Or is it all bandwidth? Can we change a process here is this specifically for this allocation? And not reallocate it to S&I, but still with grants. Can we change the process of the grant movement
Well,
for
that's-
$170,000 or $140,000?
Well, and that's why I look to Corp Counsel, because again, we wouldn't use that same bulky process for this one grant, right? Versus when we normally engage in that process, we're looking at multiple grants, millions of dollars, yes, over a period of time. Again, if this is how again, under advice of legal, but to Holomua, yeah, I think makes sense. Like, why would we engage in a 6 to 8 month process for something for $140,000, right? For something that I think we could expedite, especially if there is a plan to try and award it to a CDFI. That being said, I will also mention that you know what? I'm not going to mention Kalamai.
All right. Okay, I know we had some words here from our board council. Okay, we're going to go for the vote on this. I'm going to call for that, please.
Okay, so the amendment on the floor is to amend the action item to keep the amount within the grants program.
Correct.
So let's vote on that part.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Akaka,
Oh, I think somebody's, Akina's thing is on.
Aye.
Trustee Akaka,
She said aye.
Trustee Akina,
Ole.
Trustee Galuteria,
Aye.
Trustee Kahele,
All right.
Trustee Lindsay,
No,
I'm sorry,
no. I want to give the funds out faster.
Trustee Souza,
Aye.
Trustee Wahehe.
No.
Vice Chair Wahehe. Was that a no, sir? And Chair Alapa?
No, I also concur with trustee Lindsay. I'd like to see these funds go out as soon as possible. Go ahead. What is our total?
We actually have a tie. It's 4 no and 4 yes.
Okay, so the amendment doesn't carry?
Motion doesn't carry.
So we go back to the original motion, which is to carry over the funds from fiscal year 2024 to 2025 and to move the matter to SNI. Reallocate the SNI.
Okay, can I call for the vote on that?
Trustee Akaka?
I want to make sure that myself and everyone at this table has this correct. So if, let's say the wish is to, yes, have a carryover, but not move to SNI, that previous vote was determining that, yes? Now, with this one, it is where we have to leave the vote as is, where it's either carry over and reallocate. And if the wish is not to do that, because you just want to carry it over, the vote would be a'ole. And if you would like to do both, then the vote would be aye.
That's the motion on the floor right now.
Yes, so that's how you.
Oh, is this for clarification?
Just clarifying, yeah.
Oh.
Taking the vote already.
We're taking a vote, right? Yeah, we're doing the vote right now.
Discussion, no. On the original motion.
This is on the, this is the vote
Yeah.
on the.
Can I make a
original.
comment on the original?
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I think either way, it's got to be carried over. And either way, no matter what department it goes to, we can still say that we want to create a different program or a different avenue. It doesn't need to be the regular solicitation process. That can be another conversation. So my point is, we don't know how long it's going to take because there's no one here from grants to validate that process. And I'm just from the top of my head right now, just from what I heard, it's because we don't have the capacity in the grants department. So again, moving over people to help that process would expedite the process potentially down to 1 month. And then we could say it takes 1 month here, 1 month there. It doesn't matter where it goes to. So it should just stay within grants. I mean, so we don't have that information right now. So, but I just want to be clear on where everyone knows what they're voting on, because we still have that ability, because we haven't created the program yet. We're allocating the funds. We haven't even created a program. And once we identify the CDFIs or the 501c3 or OHA to distribute the funds, then we can have that conversation. But for now, all we're talking about is keeping the funds in grants or moving it to SNI and carrying it over. That's the two things, right?
Is it possible to suggest an amendment where it's just simply the carryover and that's it? That be an amendment?
Could we not bifurcate?
Over and it's still in grants, and that's where it'll remain, right? So
Back to that again.
so that amendment was just voted down. So
So
that's it. Either way, it has to be done.
Yeah, so ultimately, we know for sure the carryover needs to be done. But the part where it says and reallocate, that is what is in question.
Right.
So Yes,
So
so
just
would
vote on
you like to
carryover.
make, or I
think
could
that-
make an amendment?
Go ahead. Oh,
Or-
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's in grants, so the carryover will be in grants that were just voted down.
But then that way it's still carried over.
What was that, Trustee Lindsay?
Or the other option is to do an amendment if people, if it is the will of the board, if the majority of the board feels that would be. What?
Madam
Okay,
Chair.
what is-
Yes, go
Madam
ahead.
Chair, Levy, would we be able to bifurcate within the same motion? You know, instead of like how we usually do for like 3 separate action items together, within the same verbiage of the same motion, can we bifurcate the first part and then take the second part? Because the second part does say to put it in S&I for the Mahi program. The first part does say to carry over. So are we able to bifurcate that as far as the motion goes? I'm just saying that because we seem to all agree with the carryover. I
Yeah.
think where it's gonna go.
But it has to go somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And to Navy's point, we just voted on that and it got voted down.
He's worried. I'm confused. What was that? So I'm gonna read.
So what would be,
My point would be, if we voted,
Options.
sorry, Madam Chair, if I
Go
may
ahead.
follow up. My point is that if we right now take the vote on the original motion,
Right.
and say that gets voted down too, what happens to the carryover? That's my concern. That doesn't get carried over, right? And so something we gotta take into consideration, guys. I mean,
Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hey,
Chair Taylor.
Everett, I guess this question is for Everett. So these previously approved funds will lapse at the end of this fiscal year if not spent or expended?
Yes. Yes, to Chair Kelly's
Okay,
question.
so the funds will lapse. So at the absolute very least, if the board still believes in this previous board action and that we want to carry over these funds from 24 to the next fiscal year, at the very least, we have to authorize the carryover of the funds. Is that correct? This can't be accomplished in the upcoming budget cycle, the current budget that we're working on.
May I,
Go ahead.
trustee?
Yes.
It's already lapsed because it was in FY '24. So effectively, I'm just asking for it to be within this fiscal year. And then if we encumber funds before the end of this fiscal year, we don't have to then ask for it to roll over again. If we don't encumber those funds by securing a contract with a 501(c)(3), then I will have to ask for it to be rolled over again. Yeah, with the PR. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions, trustees?
I guess the other question I would have is then why wouldn't we just do it in this upcoming budget? I mean, if it's already lapsed, it was from 2 fiscal years ago. Why wouldn't when we're approaching the next budget cycle? Why wouldn't we just do it then? Do it the right way.
But it's already in this and the original was Souza. We did amend it, but we shot that down. And then in the beginning part, it was
Mahalo.
Lindsay and Wahi. On the motion. Because you guys were the. It's not, yeah, so we're gonna keep it there. These guys are wanting their money, they're supposed to help out the farmers, right? So why the hell are we not helping them out? Exactly. Okay, so that's the original motion. Okay, so we have the original motion on the table. Hello, everyone. We have the original motion on the table, carried by trustee Lindsay, seconded by John Wahia'i, correct? All right, so let's call for the vote. Go ahead, please.
Trustee Akaka,
His money's there.
Trustee Akaka,
Yes,
I can read the original motion. How about that? All right, action item BF number 2527, approval to carry over 140,000 of fiscal year 2024 grant carryover funds to fiscal year 2025 and the reallocate from the grants program budget to the strategy implementation economic stability program budget for execution of the Mahi Micro Fund, a program to alleviate water bill and property tax costs for Native Hawaiian farmers statewide. Roll call, please.
Trustee Akaka, Trustee Akina,
Aye.
Trustee Galutaria,
Aye.
Trustee Kahele,
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay, Trustee Souza, Vice Chair Wahia'i,
Yes.
Trustee Akaka,
but I just want to make this one point here is that I'm mostly voting because of my concern for the carryover. I think that we need to figure out this process so that we can get these funds out. I want to know the best way that we can go forward on this, and my main concern is the carryover. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Trustee
Trustee
Souza?
Souza,
Yes, with reservations. Thank you.
Okay. And
and Chair Lapa.
yes, a motion carries. Mahalo, everyone. That was tough. My goodness. All right. Mahalo. We are on to our last item. I'm so hungry. Our last item on the agenda today is item G. Do we have any testifiers? None. There is none, so we're going to move ahead. This is an update of the OHA preliminary biennium budget of FY 26-27, 2026-2027. Our administration has worked hard and continued to do so and to meet the needs of our trustees and their concerns, questions, and approvals that they may have for the operations and programs of OHA. And we do have a presentation by their administration, the OHA fiscal year 2026 and 2027 preliminary biennium budget status update as of April 25, 2025. And I'd like to call upon Ramona Hink and or Kapanui
I'll just start
for updates on this biennium budget. And go ahead.
I'll just start really quickly. So we did submit our board packet on Monday morning. However, since that submission, we did find a discrepancy in one of our formulas. So I asked permission to hand out an updated presentation with our updated numbers. Specifically, it was within personnel. So I'd like to ask permission if we can pass out our updated presentation.
Sure.
And we can also email it out to the board for trustees like Chair Kahele, who is online.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah. Thank you. We're running to your meeting time, and it's gonna get close, because I need to set up and everything, so you want to just go in or just take up, and because we want to have food outside. All that food for everybody, because we never eat, everybody's hungry. 15 minutes?
I get great news to show up in my meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Yeah, that'd
This
be
is,
great.
this is important. You
Yeah.
saying finish up and go defer the rest.
Well, no, I was just saying, no, no, so he'll answer about your meeting, and then, because we're done.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And then
I mean-
start the meeting.
Call a what? Okay, you know what, I'm gonna call a recess right now, I have to, okay, please. So about what, 15 minutes? Okay, yeah, definitely. So there's food outside, right? Okay, let's go eat, you guys. We got, just wolf it down. We come back and then finish this up and get into our last, committee meeting.